Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Exotic Car Play Place. Do you often wonder what is more reliable, the Lexus or the Porsche brand? Let's get talking about it now. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Mark with Exotic Car Play Place. So because I've got a lot of experience with a lot of these cars and reliability, I'm going to share with you examples of both Lexus and Porsche and why they may or may not be reliable, and particular cars that are not reliable. As well, I'm going to share with you at the very end, talk about how certain vehicles are more reliable in different driving circumstances. So it's not a big secret that Lexus is known for its reliability and dependability. As a matter of fact, Lexus leads the lists on J.D. Power's and Consumer Reports, amongst many other lists, as far as predicted reliability goes. Lexus is always close to the top, if not the top brand, along with Toyota as well. But Porsche also, for a premium sports car manufacturer, is also known for actually a relatively high level of reliability. Now, neither of them are perfect because they are mechanical items. However, generally as a rule, they're both very dependable. But we're going to give you some examples. So talking about Lexus first. For example, when you apply the brakes, you might get a clunking noise. That's unique, but that is a brake control module thing and actually can be very expensive. At about $3,000, you can get it fixed as well. So another example of where Lexus maybe isn't quite as reliable is issues around dashboard lighting and LED displays. Particularly, we talk about the SC models as well. They're not unique to this, but sometimes the lighting starts to dim, or you lose pixels, or spaces improve or widen, or just dimmer in certain sections. You might actually lose light altogether around the tachometer and speedometer. That's a very well-known issue with these things, and obviously can be a concern if you're driving the car at night. You've got to see your gauges, sorry. Another issue is the GS models, but let's face it, it's not just GS. There's no secret, lots of the Lexus models have CELs, check engine lights, associated with oxygen sensors. They spit out different engine codes under the OBD protocol, and often this really is a relatively simple fix, but the problem is when oxygen sensors go, you get a trouble code, it costs you a little bit of money, inconvenience to take it to the shop. At the end of the day, there needs to be work done in this department. Another example is in, say, for example, GX models, and again, not exclusively to, there's a noise in the rear end. Sometimes upon braking or slowing down, you'll get a clunking noise. Either could be bushing related in the rear end, and axles. Axles have been a problem with some of these vehicles as well. So you can get bad axles that need to be updated, like I said, or bushings. Another problem, and honestly not exclusive to Lexus. I know BMW has had this issue. Even Lamborghinis I've seen had this issue in certain applications where a certain brand or supplier of rear view mirrors had the particular filler behind the glass that gives you your night vision or your night dimming effect starts to deteriorate and fail. This results in essentially sort of a foggy or discoloration, streaks, squares, rust color, all kinds of ugliness in the rearview mirror. I know in some cases, if it leaks out, that's a toxic chemical. But at the end of the day, losing your vision on the rearview mirror is common for these cars. Another problem, again, not exclusive to RX models, definitely not just exclusive to IS models, but as well, a lot of Lexus models have transmission-related issues. Whether it's transmissions failing completely, or you get really jerky sudden shifting, or laggy shifts where they just miss or don't shift at all, or they delay too long. Lots of shifting issues. Some of these problems are rectified by a reprogramming, but sometimes even after reprogramming, a lot of these problems continue to exist. And another big issue, a lot of other brands get labeled with, bad unreliability terms because they leak oil. Leaking oil is not unique to some of these other premium brands. As a matter of fact, Lexus has some leaking issues too. One of them in particular happens to be oil cooling lines in the RX 350 as an example. These lines, because of corrosion, age, deterioration, have been known in quite significant numbers, I might add, to actually rupture or burst, leaving an entire puddle of oil on the ground. Here's a funny example of a claim, I'll show you right here, of where a customer experienced some really loud noises followed by noticing a bunch of oil on the ground. That's kind of a funny one, but hey, that's an example of what can happen. Now moving into Porsche world, of course, we know Lexus isn't perfect, although they are really, really solid overall. Porsche also has its issues. For example, in the 996 911s, 02s, 03s. Really, the 996s ran from 99 up to 2004, but we'll give you some examples at 02s, 03s, for example, oil separators. So you get coolant mixing, burning, oil, antifreeze, and really, this can be an expensive replacement part too at $2,500 all in, not a cheap part to fix. Another really common issue, particularly when you talk about the 996 cars, the Boxsters, the Boxster S, the early Caymans, all of those cars had a similar engine design and they utilized the intermediate shaft. And the intermediate shaft rides through a bearing. And that bearing is the infamous IMS bearing. And a lot of you have probably heard about that. The IMS bearing, particularly if a car is not utilized a lot, often what happens is that bearing seizes, makes noise, and eventually can blow apart. If that bearing disintegrates, which often it has known to do, those parts essentially wind up throughout oil galleries and within the entire engine compartment, thus typically frying an engine entirely. This usually means buying an entirely new crate engine. Sure, if you can find a mechanic patient enough to fiddle away their way through it and pick their way and clean this engine properly, it can be rebuilt, but Porsche generally recommends replacing an engine as a result of that. So try to get ahead of the IMS bearing issue. Using it daily. There are upgraded versions where there's supply oil systems. There's upgraded, more high-quality bearings as well. There's different approaches, so there are upgrades. Just make sure you take care of that, and that has been a known problem. Now also, in addition to this whole IMS issue, it's also common to change the rear main seal. Now also, the rear main seal isn't just common for the 996s, Boxsters, and such. It's also common for virtually every 911. I've had a couple 911s in the day, and they all suffer some level of rear main seal leak. A lot of that has to do with the fact that the seals dry up if the cars aren't used that much. But more importantly, you get the massive expansion and contraction effect going on, particularly in the older 911, the air-cooled 911 cars. But again, the rear main seal is always a potential problem for cars that aren't driven that often. And again, the 996s and 997s can sustain rear main seal leaks. So if you're in there doing the IMS, you also do your clutch and the rear main seal at the same time. Maximizes your value. Another common issue in the 911 world, and Boxsters, Caymans as well, because they are a flat six, are valve cover leaks. Very common for any of these flat six engines because the way they lay in such a way that a lot of the oil settles out, and of course you wind up, gravity takes over and oil settles down at the bottom, often finds its way through little bad seals or gaskets on not just, every little fitting and whatnot, but also the valve cover seals are common to leak. Another problem with the Cayennes, for example. The Cayenne, the SUV that Porsche created, particularly in the earlier models, they had an issue with coolant leaks. One of the coolant leaks comes from the thermostat housing, which is not that easy to get at. That is a common issue in the earlier Cayenne S's and the Cayennes. Expensive, pain in the you-know-what, and it's very common. So thermostat leaks, definitely coolant leaks of different varieties is common for those cars or SUVs. And also, a while back I was doing some shopping looking for a Cayenne, maybe an older used one just to drive around, tool around for wintertime. I can't believe how many actually that I came across had connecting rod knocks. Lots of them seem to suffer that issue, and particularly I've seen a bunch in the turbos, the early turbo Cayennes. So something also to watch for. Again, it's essential whether you're buying a used Lexus or a Porsche that you're going to do a pre-purchase inspection if you're putting down any significant amount of money. You want to make sure you protect your investment. So this summary really, which one is more reliable? Well, there's a lot more to talk about in this equation between Porsche and Lexus than just what we talked about here today. But we're going to give you a quick summary if we're going to talk in broad terms. And in summary, there's two different ways that owners might drive their cars, and those two different ways can impact cars differently. So if you're talking about sheer robust dependability under heavy and hard high-performance driving experiences, the Porsche is always going to take better abuse than you would for a Lexus. For example, if you take a Porsche 911, even a 996, out to a racetrack and beat on that car all day long on an autocross or racetrack, it will likely take, and you'll drive it home, and it'll take it, and you'll do an oil change, update the brakes and the tires, and the car will be almost good as new. Try the same driving experience with a Lexus, and you will find the weaknesses. The Lexuses are not generally designed as a performance car, particularly around the engine itself. That's where Porsche is known for its racing heritage. And under hard driving, Porsche wins that game every day. Now, on the other hand, if you're looking for a car and you want to log 300,000-400,000 miles and you just want to drive Miss Daisy to the grocery store every day, so you're driving it more normally, more regularly, you're giving it your 5,000 kilometer oil changes, and really the car is not subjected to heavy and hard rigorous driving, the Lexus will outlast the Porsche all day long. They're both very reliable vehicles and they're both very robust, but they sort of both appeal to a different driving style. And again, if you drive them hard, you drive the Porsche. If you drive them long and you want to go long distance, but not so much the spirited drive, you go with the Lexus. Both great bets, both excellent cars, and both proven reliability. I hope you guys learned something about Lexus and Porsche reliability. And specifically, if you want to learn a little bit more, I have a great playlist. Make sure you click on that playlist on the end screen. That will take you to a whole pile of different reliability related topics. And as well, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notifications bell. Hope to see you guys soon. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.